These have to be the best performing hearing aids in background noise that I've ever reviewed. Hey guys, Cliff Olson, Doctor of Audiology and founder of Applied Hearing Solutions in Phoenix, Arizona, and in this video, I'm doing a detailed review of the new Phonak Audeo Sphere Infinio hearing aids. Oftentimes when I'm doing hearing aid reviews, I'm talking about marginal improvements from one generation of technology to the next generation of technology. But once in every few generations, I end up reviewing a hearing aid that is substantially better than the generation that preceded it, and I'm happy to say that the Phonak Audeo Sphere Infinio hearing aids are one of those devices. Now, Phonak has released multiple models on this new Infinio platform, including the Phonak Audeo Infinio R, the Infinio Cross R, the Audeo Sphere Infinio R, the Custom Virto Infinio R, the Custom Virto Infinio 10 non-wireless, and the Custom Virto Infinio Titanium. That is correct. There is no disposable battery receiver and canal option with this product launch, and it is unknown at this time if they will release a size 312 or size 13 disposable battery model to this lineup in the future. However, in this video, I am specifically focusing on their flagship Audeo Sphere Infinio R hearing aid. I will be reviewing all the other Infinio models here in the next several weeks, so if you want to make sure that you catch those review videos, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on, and when I do have them published, I will start linking them in the description of this video. If you're familiar with my review process, then you know that I do not review hearing aids unless I've had a chance to actually wear them, because otherwise I'd just be regurgitating the marketing materials from the hearing aid manufacturers, and that wouldn't be of much benefit to you. So thanks for bearing with me as I put these hearing aids through the ringer, and I put them through some very difficult listening situations. The highlight of the Phonak Audeo Sphere Infinio hearing aid is their new DeepSonic chip that was trained with their large deep neural network, and it has one job: to separate speech from background noise. In fact, do me a favor, if understanding speech in background noise is the #1 most important thing to you, let me know down in the comment section, and heads up, hearing aid manufacturers pay attention to my comment section. Now, if you have not yet heard an audio sample of the Phonak Audeo Sphere Infinio hearing aids, I will have it towards the end of this video, and trust me, it will blow your mind, so make sure that you watch till the end. Just remember, it does not matter how awesome any hearing aid is, including this hearing aid, unless you've had it fit and programmed by a hearing care professional who follows best practices. Best practices are a long series of considerations and procedures, including speech and noise testing, test box measures, real ear measurement, and validated outcome measures that are required to ensure that your hearing aids have been fit and programmed correctly. Unfortunately, estimates show that less than 30% of hearing care professionals actually follow best practices, which means it can be very difficult to find one of these providers. That's why I recommend you go to my website, HearingUp.com, and find a HearingUp network member in your area. HearingUp members have been vetted and are committed to following comprehensive audiologic best practices to ensure that you can hear your absolute best. So if you want to guarantee that you get the full amount of benefit from a hearing aid like the Phonak Audeo Sphere Infinio, then I highly recommend finding a HearingUp network member to make it happen. Okay, now on with the review. First, let's start talking about some of the basics and new feature additions inside of the Sphere Infinio hearing aids to see if they're really as good as advertised. The Sphere Infinio hearing aids only come in 2 technology levels, level 90 and level 70, with level 90 being their premium offering. As far as price goes, it heavily depends on where you live, what services are included, and what the quality of those services are, and of course it also matters with the technology level that you go with. So my recommendation is the same for everybody. You should be going with the highest level of technology that you can reasonably afford. If you cannot afford it, you should be dropping down to the level that you can afford, and then it's the job of your hearing care professional to maximize the performance of those devices for you. The Sphere Infinio hearing aids only come in a rechargeable receiver in canal form factor. So if you're looking for a BTE Sphere Infinio or you're looking for an ITE Sphere Infinio, you're out of luck. Of course, if you want a non-sphere version of the Custom Virto Infinio hearing aids, they do have that option for you. It just will not have the DeepSonic chip. The Sphere Infinio is capable of fitting any level of hearing loss, from a mild level hearing loss all the way up to a profound level hearing loss, using anywhere between a standard receiver up to an ultra power receiver, as long as you're using the appropriate dome or custom ear mold. This hearing aid is completely redesigned with an 8-pin SDS 6.0 receiver. Not only does this allow the receiver to receive information from the hearing aid to amplify inside of your ears, but it also communicates information back to the hearing hearing aid to indicate to the hearing aid exactly which type of receiver you're using, which actually helps your hearing care professional out because it does not let them accidentally put the wrong receiver on the hearing aid. Unfortunately, these new receivers do not yet have MEMS solid-state silicon speaker technology, so you will not get much additional gain above 8,000 hertz, but I do have to say that the ultra power version of this receiver extended its bandwidth from 6,100 hertz all the way up to 8,000 hertz. They do have a new snap fit design, so you no longer need a pin tool to push out the pin that holds on to the receiver. So if you're the type of person who actually likes to switch out your own receivers at home because you may have a backup set of custom seashell receivers, you can do that without a special tool. And yes, the new SDS 6.0 receivers still use the traditional Siru stop wax traps for more convenient changing of your wax traps. They are not using the Siru shield anymore like you had with the SDS 4.0s. The rechargeable Sphere Infinio hearing aids are compatible with the ActiveVent receivers, which is actually a very important thing for these hearing aids, considering that they actually perform better when you can close off your entire ear canal, and the ActiveVent receiver will actually have a vent that opens and closes depending on if you're streaming or if you go into a loud background noise situation. In addition to the DeepSonic chip that I briefly mentioned earlier, this hearing aid also has a second new chip called the ERA chip that replaces the previous generation Prism chip that we had inside of the Lumity line of devices. This new and improved ERA chip allows for some nice new features, including the new AutoSense OS 6.0. If you're unfamiliar with Phonak's AutoSense operating system, it essentially allows your hearing aids to function more automatically. Its automatic classifier identifies what type of situation that you're in and shifts you into program settings that are ideal for that particular environment without you having to make an adjustment for it. For example, if you're sitting at home watching TV and it's relatively quiet, your hearing aids will put you into a calm situation program. Then if you decide to hop into the car to drive to a restaurant, the hearing aids will put you into a speech and car program to handle the road noise. Then when you get to the restaurant, the hearing aid will either switch you into a speech and noise program, or if it's incredibly noisy, switch you automatically into the spheric speech and loud noise program. But not only does this work for real world environments, AutoSense also will automatically select different streaming settings for you based on whether you're listening to speech-related media or music-related media, and it will even have unique program settings for phone call streaming. So if you're watching my video and you're pretty much just listening to me talk, you would be in your speech media program inside of AutoSense. But then if you're listening to, I don't know, your favorite Ed Sheeran song, it would switch you into your music media streaming program, and it would have different settings for both of them. Apparently, the new Adaptive Phonak Digital 3.0 fitting formula leads to some pretty high satisfaction rates on the initial fit at 93% satisfaction. However, I highly recommend that you get your hearing aid programming verified using real ear measurement to either a NAL NL2, NAL NL1, or DSL version 5 validated prescriptive formula. That is, if you actually want your hearing aids to perform their best in quiet and in background noise. There is a new feature called Dome AI Proposer that will help your hearing care professional select the appropriate dome for your level of hearing loss, whether that's an open dome, a vented dome, or a closed dome. And they do not yet have a custom ear mold AI Proposer, which would arguably be even better because I think that Phonak hearing aids perform substantially better in most cases when you use one of their custom ear molds. Fortunately, if your hearing care professional does recommend custom ear molds, Phonak does accept custom 3D digital ear scans that result in an extremely accurate fit and enhanced hearing aid performance. All right, let me go ahead and show you what the Sphere Infinio hearing aid looks like. Just pop this guy out of the charger. Let me see if I can get that in focus there. You can see the flashing green light letting us know it's turning on. There is an up and down push button on there. And look at the size of that guy. I will give you some reference as to the actual size based on previous generation devices. I do have to say that this guy is pretty fat. He's actually pretty skinny up towards the top, and the fatness is more towards the bottom of the hearing aid. I was initially shocked at the size of this because I was like, man, that is probably the biggest receiver in canal hearing aid that I've seen in quite some time. But considering that there is extra waterproofing inside of this hearing aid, there are 2 chips inside of this hearing aid and there is a bigger battery to power all of that, it kind of makes sense that they had to go this large. I do have to say though that once you get them behind your ears, as long as you have a reasonable amount of space behind your ears, you really can't tell that much of a difference from the previous generation rechargeable technology. And on top of that, I'm also an eyeglass user as well, and you might notice that these push my ears out just a little bit there. Let me get this other one on and show you what it actually looks like behind my ear as well. But I can definitely tell it pushes my ears out a little bit and maybe a little bit more when I put my glasses on, but because they're so skinny at the top, it really doesn't interfere with my glasses that much. But let me kind of show you that behind my ears. Let me spin around the other way, one of the benefits of a swivel chair here. And that's essentially what it looks like behind my ears, and that's from the side. You can see I'm poking out the back a little bit. I do know that silver is not my color. I'm more of a sand beige or sandalwood color because that blends in with my hair better. The only people I really expect this size to be an issue with are people who have extremely narrow space behind their ears, or if they have really stiff cartilage that if you push on it at all, it creates a lot of soreness. Now let me go ahead and give you some size comparisons of the Sphere Infinio hearing aids with some other models from the previous generation. Right here, we're looking at the size comparison between a Phonak Audeo Lumity 312 disposable battery hearing aid. You can see that the Sphere Infinio is significantly larger than this previous generation device. If you compare the Sphere Infinio to the previous generation Lumity rechargeable hearing aid, you can see that yes, it is also bigger than that hearing aid, and it is even bigger than the previous generation Lumity Life rechargeable hearing aid, which up until this point was the largest hearing aid that Phonak had. I suspect that existing hearing aid users will not care at all about the size of these hearing aids because most existing hearing aid users care about one thing, and that is performance. However, new hearing aid users might be scared off a little bit by the size, especially if they compare the size of this hearing aid to other models that are out there. But at the end of the day, if performance is what you're looking for, this is probably going to trump anything when it comes to size of hearing aid. As far as the colors go, the Sphere Infinio hearing aids come in all of their standard flesh tone and hair colors, but they have also added some more subtle, fun colors like copper, sienna red, and Atlantic green. As far as battery life is concerned, it's expected that you will get up to 16 hours of battery life, even if you're doing up to 3 hours of Bluetooth streaming. I will share my real world experience with battery life a little bit later in this video, so just hang on a minute for that. Phonak does have some internal data that shows that the average Phonak hearing aid user uses their hearing aids for 13 hours a day. Of course, you are going to have some individuals who wear their hearing aids significantly less than that, and some individuals who wear their hearing aids significantly more than that. So if you're one of those individuals that wears your hearing aids for more than 16 hours a day, you'll probably have to sneak in a quick charge at some point during the day. Fortunately, it only takes around 15 minutes inside of the charger to give you an additional 3 hours of battery life on these hearing aids. I was hoping for a longer battery life with these hearing aids, upwards of around 24 hours of battery life, but if that was going to increase the size of these hearing aids, I'm glad they didn't. However, you will not get 16 hours of battery life with these hearing aids if you happen to use the new Spheric Speech and Loud Noise program, and I'll explain why later in this video. My biggest issue with these hearing aids actually has to do with the charger. Now, this charger is better than their previous generation charger because it does store an internal charge. You can see the green flashing light there. So you can charge your hearing aids up inside of this charger without having to have it plugged in the wall. It does use an USB-C plug-in. My issue with the charger has to do, once again, with the size of the well in the center where your custom ear molds would go into. Because any custom ear mold, if you use a canal lock or a skeleton lock, heaven forbid, there is no way that that's going to fit nicely inside of there. It's not really going to be an issue for someone who uses rubber domes on the ends of their receiver wires, but if you use a custom ear mold, or rather need a custom ear mold, you may not be able to use these hearing aids. With the previous generation Lumity devices, this was the size of the charger well. Now you tell me which one of those is bigger and which one of those is smaller. Now, they're pretty similar, but the point still remains, like, that's really bad for someone who needs a custom ear mold. And the reason I'm making such a big deal out of this is because I complained about this in my previous video, talking about the Lumity hearing aids that they released, and they decided to do the exact same thing on this new product line. And at least with the Lumity devices, I could take an older generation charger, like even 2 generations back, and use those for my patients who needed a custom ear mold and their custom ear molds wouldn't fit inside of here. But what the heck am I supposed to do with this now? You can't use a previous generation charger for these Infinio hearing aids. I'm not saying it's impossible to fit custom ear molds inside of this charger, it just can be very difficult depending on the size of your ear molds. Phonak, if you're watching this, I'm begging you, for the sake of individuals with moderate to profound levels of hearing loss that need custom ear molds, make your chargers compatible with your custom ear molds. All right, let me calm down here for a second. That has me pretty fired up. Now, I will say that Phonak has gone back to the contact charging inside of the charger. Sure, that can lead to some debris-related issues, but it's definitely more reliable from a charging standpoint compared to inductive charging, and I think that's why a lot of hearing aid manufacturers are starting to actually get away from inductive charging and go back to contact charging. The Infinio hearing aids also got an upgrade when it comes to reliability. While they still have the same rated IP68 rating, they are now equipped with the same type of waterproofing that we saw inside of the Audeo Life hearing aids. Basically, it gives you peace of mind if you happen to get these hearing aids wet. So you don't have to really worry if you jump into the shower accidentally with these. You don't really have to worry if you sweat a lot in these hearing aids. That water is not going to very easily be able to get into these hearing aids to cause damage. Of course, if they do, go see your hearing care professional. Chances are they'll be able to pull that moisture out of the hearing aids. And if they have to go into the manufacturer for repair, that is included in your warranty. Okay, let's talk about Bluetooth here. So a lot of individuals were really hoping that these hearing aids were going to come out with LE audio Bluetooth, and unfortunately Phonak has decided to go a different direction. Right now they are only compatible with Bluetooth Classic devices. Now, this is not all bad news. Phonak has upgraded the Bluetooth version from 4.2 to 5.3, which effectively doubles the distance of transmission with these hearing aids using Bluetooth Classic. While this will not significantly improve the audio quality of streamed audio for media, music, or phone calls, it does mean that these hearing aids will be able to receive a firmware update to get you up to LE audio when it becomes more ubiquitous. It's probably a good decision by Phonak to go with Bluetooth Classic as of right now, because it allows you to pair these hearing aids with up to 8 different Bluetooth devices with 2 active connections at the exact same time. And you can pair with pretty much anything that has Bluetooth Classic. We're talking smartphones, dumb phones, tablets, laptops, and desktop computers. When LE Audio does become more widely available, they can do this firmware update really whenever they want to, which would give you better audio streaming quality, lower the battery drain, and it will even give you access to Auracast broadcast audio. Auracast will essentially give you access to audio in public venues like churches, museums, sports bars, or even concert halls, meaning that you'll be able to stream the audio from those venues directly into both of your ears, and the sound quality will be amazing. And this is very good news, considering that none of the receiver-in-canal versions of the Infinio hearing aids will have access to a telecoil, including the Infinio. Whether they decide to add a receiver-in-canal model in the future that has a telecoil, I have no idea, but as of right now, the only 2 devices that have a telecoil option inside of them are the non-wireless Verto and the non-wireless Verto Titanium devices. The Infinio hearing aids are also not compatible with the Cross Infinio R device. So if you have single-sided deafness, you're not going to be able to use the Infinio hearing aids. You're going to have to go with the regular non-Sphere Audeo Infinio rechargeable hearing aid with the Infinio cross transmitter. The Infinio hearing aids do have a motion sensor still inside of them, which allows you to have access to motion sensor hearing, which will adjust the directionality of your microphones based on when you're sitting or when you're walking. And it also gives you access to tap control functions to either answer the phone, hang up on a phone call, or activate your voice assistant. The Sphere Infinio is also still compatible with all of the great Phonak accessories, including the TV connector, the partner mic, and all of the Roger microphones. Yes, these do have integrated Roger receivers, but there is not software installed inside of them when you initially purchase them, so you're going to have that software installed into your hearing aids, which means that you should probably consider one of the Roger devices that have the IN indicators on them. We're talking about the Roger On IN, the Roger Select IN, or just a regular Roger X receiver that can be uploaded into your hearing aids to make you compatible with all of the Roger accessories. The Sphere Infinio hearing aids are still compatible with the MyPhonak app, and you can use the MyPhonak app for a variety of different things. You can switch between the different programs that you have. You can check your battery life. You can also identify how many remaining hours of battery life that you have based on certain programs that you're going into. You can adjust the volume level of your hearing aids either together or independently for left and right ears. You can go into your program adjust settings and adjust a 3-band equalizer. You can adjust the noise reduction of the hearing aids, or even the speech focus and the dynamic settings, which are your compression settings. You can save that as a new program so you can access it later. You can go into your support tab, and you can also initiate a remote care session with your hearing care professional. So if you don't want to go into your provider's office, or rather if your provider says that it's okay for you not to come into their office and you can do a remote session, you can do that directly through your app. Wear time and step tracking are also still available inside of the app, but there haven't been any significant improvements in the accuracy of that from the previous generation Lumity devices. I will probably have another review video of the app independently of the hearing aids, but for right now, just know that it's very similar to the previous generation app. Of course, all of that aside, the thing that you're really here for is how good are these hearing aids in background noise, right? Well, the key difference between the Phonak Audeo Sphere Infinio hearing aids versus the other Infinio hearing aids that are not Sphere devices is that they also have the DeepSonic chip in combination with the ERA chip. Phonak has spent years developing this new chip and training it with a new deep neural network. No, this is not the first hearing aid that uses a deep neural network. The first one that really came out on the market was Oticon, followed by Starkey. However, the way that Phonak's new deep neural network was trained and deployed is completely new. It uses what is called a large deep neural network that was trained with 22 million sound samples through 4.5 million neural connections, and performs 7.7 billion operations per second to effectively separate speech from noise. This new DeepSonic chip requires a ton of processing power. In fact, it has 33 times the amount of processing power as other standard chips on the market right now. And this chip is only utilized when the spheric speech and loud noise program is either automatically activated by AutoSense OS 6.0 or manually activated by you. To truly do this job to the highest level of its capability, they could not include this processing on one chip. They had to completely design a separate chip just to take over this functionality. And when you activate the spheric speech and loud noise program, it is quite literally unbelievable. Now, Phonak claims that users can get up to a 10 decibel signal to noise ratio improvement, which is huge, using fixed directional microphones and spheric speech clarity set to max. And according to another white paper, you are up to 3 times more likely to understand speech in challenging environments from any direction compared to 2 other leading competitors, which is up to a 36.7% improvement. Now, all of these statistics and objective data points sound amazing, but what do these hearing aids actually sound like when you go into background noise? Well, here you go.
Intro song. And I was like so behind the beat because when I would press it down, all of a sudden the pitch shift stuff was behind by like 10 milliseconds. I mean, it's enough to make the feel off. You know, it's.
Now, when I first heard that sample, I was like, there is no way that these hearing aids perform that good in background noise. In fact, I even challenged the R&D team over at Phonak about this, and they assured me that that was an actual recording using these hearing aids, not something that was digitally synthesized inside of the lab. I will say though that they said that they took that recording with a fully occluded ear, meaning that it was not done with open domes or even a custom ear mold with a vent inside of it. It was completely blocked off ear canals, which is a very tiny percentage of individuals who actually actually wear hearing aids. So basically, I just needed to hear it for myself in the real world, which meant that I had an excuse to go and wear these hearing aids in an extremely noisy environment, which is exactly what I did last week. Now, I set these hearing aids up with vented domes. So those are what I'm talking about when I say vented domes, all right? They have a little bit of venting in there. They are not completely occluding inside of my ears, but they're not open domes either. So it does trap in a little bit more amplification and blocks a little bit more outside noise from entering my ear canals naturally. I actually recorded a vlog of this experience at the Phonak launch up in Las Vegas that I will have linked in the description. You'll probably want to watch that video. And I've got to say that I was shocked with how good these hearing aids performed. The true test anytime I'm reviewing a hearing aid is an A/B comparison between either a calm situation program or a regular speech and noise program, and whatever program I want to compare that to when I get into a difficult listening situation. And in this situation, the spheric speech and loud noise program. And when I switched from the calm situation program or the speech and noise program into the spheric speech and loud noise program, it was the most dramatic difference that I have ever experienced in all of my 7 years of reviewing hearing aids. The funny thing is that I was totally mentally prepared to call BS on that audio sample that Phonak sent over to me that you guys just heard a second ago. But I have to say that the real world accuracy of that recording was pretty accurate. And just to add a little more unbiased validity to my perceptions, third-party hearing aid lab HearAdvisor performed independent testing of the Sphere Infinio in background noise and compared their performance to other popular hearing aid brands, and they gave me a never-before-seen sneak peek of their data. What they found was that the spheric speech and loud noise program of the Audeo Sphere Infinio hearing aids outperformed all of the other hearing aids they tested. In fact, it was the only hearing aid that scored above a 4 on their performance scale when programmed to an NAL/NL2 prescription verified with real ear measurement. But it's not all positive, because using this program is a power hog. In fact, when your hearing aids are close to 100% battery life, you would expect to get around 16 hours of battery life using the AutoSense program. But when you switch into this spheric speech and loud noise program, it actually only gives you around 7 hours of battery life if you were to use it the entire time that you're wearing the hearing aids. This means that you either have to limit your use of this particular program, or you have to buy 2 sets of these hearing aids so you can swap back and forth between both of them, which really isn't practical for most people. Now, you could argue that you don't need to use the spheric speech and loud noise program all the time, but I will say that I actually prefer this program no matter what situation I'm in. I don't know what it is. It's probably something with this deep neural network artificial intelligence that it just knows what things that you want to listen to. Now, there is an option inside of the programming software that your hearing care professional can toggle that will kick you out of the spheric speech and loud noise program after 3 hours, so it doesn't just drain your battery life when you don't really need to use the program. Of course, if you're really good at managing the usage of your hearing aids, you can pretty much get your hearing aids to last all day. I was actually able to wear them for 14 hours while using the spheric speech and loud noise program for 40% of that time. And now I did have to charge them a little bit in the middle of the day. I popped them into the charger for maybe 5 to 10 minutes at the most, and it got me that full 14 hours. But I mean, other than that, these hearing aids were very impressive. Now, I know that there are some of you out there who are gonna call me a liar, and there's no way that these hearing aids perform that well, and that's totally fine. But before you call me out down in the comment section of this video, try them for yourself and let me know. Because overall, I found that the Phonak Audeo Sphere Infinio hearing aids were some of the most impressive hearing aids that I have ever reviewed on this channel. Are they perfect? No. I mean, I'd like them to be considerably smaller than what they are. I would like the freaking charger to be able to fit some custom ear molds inside of them. I would like the battery life to be much longer, and I would really like the activation of the LE Audio Bluetooth because my Samsung phone can use LE Audio. But if your goal is to hear the best that you possibly can in background noise without having to use an assistive listening device like a remote microphone, these hearing aids are probably the closest that you'll ever get.